Hello. My name is SamJ. I'm a non-binary artist. I'm 23 and I'm based in Amsterdam. A little bit of background about myself. I have an education in graphic design, and I got involved in NFTs around mid-2020, and I've been doing it full-time ever since. And I've been lucky enough to have some experience with crypto all the way back into 2016 and 2017, which really helped me understand this broader idea of financial liberation and personal agency, and this idea of decentralization that many artists talking today have, I'm sure, already brought up plenty of times. But also really how volatile the market can be and the type of people involved in the crypto industry. So once I discovered NFTs and I started getting more and more experimental with it, I didn't really have access to any of these curated platforms yet, so I just started by minting as much as I could on open platforms such as Rarible or OpenSea, and I was just trying everything I could from different edition sizes to auction pricing and just trying as much as I could with also art styles and from 3D animation to like street art murals and seeing what really stuck. I had a lot of fun in this beginning, time. It was very freeing, and I made sure to meet as many artists as I could by, buying their art and being active on social media. And it always was just blowing my mind to see what else was possible through NFTs and the art that people were making. And this was kind of in the middle of that first lockdown, so it felt just so playful and enriching, and it was so exciting to be involved in this brand new, thrilling environment. Eventually, through these connections, I was able to be accepted onto Super Rare after a few months, and I really was able to acknowledge this opportunity to expand my art into something that wasn't already being created in the space and go beyond what was expected from NFTs at the time. And I'm a huge art history nerd, so I really drew some parallels from movements earlier in the 20th century like Cubism or even street art with artists like Banksy, and see how those sort of grassroots art movements from then were elevated into this massive cultural movement that we regard them as today, and how there was so much potential for digital art to follow this path into the future. So with this in mind, I was able to mint one of the first performance art pieces on Super Rare as my genesis, and solidified my position as the first drag artist ever just in the NFT space. Thank you. And I really was just pushing forward to see what was possible. And I continued to experiment with a bunch of different styles and mediums, from, again, performance art to AR and VR, and experimenting between physical and digital, and continued to just figure out what I could do within this space. And I really wanted to hold on to that freedom I felt in the early days, even as things progressed into 2021. And at the time, so early on, there was really no conversation going on about gender or representation or queerness in the space at all. And I recognized that given my history with, the crypto bros of 2016 and 17, that queer art really transcends what most people come to expect from art and culture. And most of the audience in the NFT space at the time related more heavily to sci-fi or cyberpunk aesthetics that we might be more familiar with from, cinema or TV shows or video games. But throughout this support of other artists that wanted to see me continue to push the boundaries, and other queer artists in the space, they really helped me solidify my art and my practice, which I really, really appreciate. As the conversations did start happening, though, a lot of the male presence and the male influencers that were, holding most of the say, really had been caught off guard by having to address this inequality at first. And this led to a trend of this very facetious style of posting on Twitter just to check the box of inclusion and allyship, when in reality they were just trying to, farm engagement by tagging your favorite, artist of, X group. But it wasn't all bad, because it did actually end up amplifying the voice of these communities, and it helped an ongoing campaign of artists and founders and builders to really lead by example. So as the space progressed, we started to see more liberation and a broader queer community start to form. And I remember when I first started, I was really, really supported by early artists such as Sarah Zucker even, who spoke earlier. And I wanted to help lead that as well by supporting the artists I saw coming into 2021 and seeing them foster a new community of more and more queer artists. And by, again, leading by example and kind of proving that we can support ourselves and we are of value, the rest of the peers that we have in the NFT space started to see that we are equal, and we, do have a lot to say and should be paid attention to. And this also has provided wildly asymmetric opportunities for queer populations in unsafe living conditions, such as those living in nations where homosexuality is still illegal, or people in unsupportive housing situations and unsupportive families. So the visibility of queer people succeeding really had a broader impact, and we can see how the ripples have manifested. That got me thinking more and more about how I present really just publicly and visibly in the NFT space, because a lot of people in the space at the time, even still today, present as anonymous, and I think that there is a level of privilege to that, because I cannot really foster a queer community if I hide my identity. Although I do understand where anonymity comes from, it's very important to maintain privacy, and it really allows for people to have a fresh start and free themselves of judgment they might face otherwise from both the online world and their real life. As a queer person in the space, I have had a much nicer time connecting to my community and expressing myself as the visible person that I am today. But I've started to recognize that these are both just attempts for people to present themselves authentically without any hang-ups or, anyways. So after thinking about this for a couple months, I started working on what I will be releasing as my next piece at Username. And this is really emphasizing the two sides of the same coin, that is anonymity and being doxxed online or being visible online. And I chose to do a sort of two-part structure, which is the physical really embodying what it is to be a human and present as a human online, versus being this sort of branded anonymous individual as a VR sculpture. And on one side of the face, I have G Money's Punk, again representing anonymity, and on the other side, I have an abstracted version of my face in drag. And the physical also, just the fact that it is made of concrete and is so difficult to transport and has so much labor behind it, really emphasizes the expression of an individual's humanity versus this sort of gold standard of a digital piece that never ages or changes. As I was continuing to compare and contrast anonymity with queerness and my trans identity, I realized that to really be anonymous, we should actually be presenting beyond the gender binary that we have in our society today. And a gender binary, if you're unfamiliar, is just how masculinity and femininity manifest into like male and female gender roles. So to present as anonymous, you should have to reject those and be a more almost robotic or AI entity beyond any form of identifiable gender. And of course, that now falls under the trans umbrella, because being trans only means that you no longer identify as the gender you're assigned at birth. And so if you are presenting with an absence of gender that is a diversion from our birth, of course. And it's interesting to see how identities have shifted over time, as we've seen anonymous women in the space forced to dox themselves even to prove that they're women, or we have the other way around, where teams of women are exposed for actually being men. And I believe that with more visibility of this queer artists in the space and communities being built up, it allows for a more diverse expression of what it means to be anonymous. And really, to just wrap all of this sort of heady talk of gender and identity up into something more concise, we have this brand new opportunity in the metaverse to mold a new perceptual system beyond what we already have in today's society with the gender binary. And we cannot really be free when we're in Web3 and still somehow all assumed to be men. So, thank you.